Again, I'm not opposed to charging more, but I just wanted to dig into some of the assumptions that we make about pricing. And maybe to start, I'll tell you the story about a company I worked for back in 2010. It was in the email newsletter space. So here was the situation. I had been working for them for a couple years, and we had essentially two products serving two different niches. On the one hand, we had this product, let's just call it My Newsletter. It was $19 a month. It was self-serve. It was targeted at small businesses. And what we started to see over 2 years is that it just required a lot of ongoing customer support, higher churn. I was doing customer support for this company, and I just remember always kind of dreading dealing with the My Newsletter customers. They were just difficult. And so on the other hand, we had a $100 a month product. We would do concierge onboarding with them. So we would usually get on the phone with them before they could actually use their account. It was targeted at bigger organizations. But what I noticed doing customer support for them is that once you got over that initial hurdle of concierge onboarding, there was less ongoing support from them and lower churn. And so I started to petition the management to get rid of the $19 a month plan and just go with the $100 a month plan. And so that's what we did. We got rid of the $19 a month plan, and the results were revenue increased, profitability improved, churn decreased, customer support decreased, all of these good things. And it was kind of a win, right? We'd done this painful thing of getting rid of our low tier, of charging more. And, for the next few years, that was a big win for us, being able to focus on this premium customer. However, I want to say there was a disadvantage to this in that, yes, we went after a higher tier customer. Yes, we raised our prices. Eventually, this company kind of lost to MailChimp. Could not compete with MailChimp's freemium tier, even though we were going after a more premium customer. And this company doesn't exist anymore. The raising prices worked, but eventually it didn't matter because the company couldn't compete. All right, so let's go back to this question. People say that low-paying customers churn a lot and complain more. Is that true? I've heard that too. In fact, I've even said that. But recently I'm just wondering, is that actually true? Do low-paying customers always churn and complain at a higher rate? And maybe in some cases it's true, and maybe in some cases it's not. So I've been looking at Open Startups, which is on Barometrics, where you can see everybody's revenue numbers, not just revenue numbers, but everything. You can see their lifetime value, their quick ratio, all of that. And I've just been putting it into this spreadsheet here. Here's just a list of a bunch of companies on Open Startups, what their current MRR is, what their average revenue per user is, what their lifetime value is, what their revenue churn is, and what their quick ratio is. The quick ratio is a measure of a company's growth efficiency. And you should read this whole post yourself, but generally a higher quick ratio is better than a lower quick ratio. Back to here. If we sort this by quick ratio, this is kind of what we get. Right now, Transistor has a really high quick ratio. So does Right Message, probably because we're both new. Transistor is about 8 months old. Right Message is about one or 2 years old. So we have these high quick ratios. But if we look at average revenue per user, some of these with lower average revenue per user have pretty good quick ratios. Some of them with average revenue per user, like Buffer, have lower quick ratios, probably because they're older, and have lower LTVs, right? But in terms of churn, this company here has 12% revenue churn, and they've got, ARPU of $59. This company has ARPU of $16, but 11% revenue churn. There's not exactly a correlation between low average revenue per user and revenue churn. Let's sort these all. In some ways, we could say some of these ones are quite high and have higher revenue churn than the ones on this half, right? And I don't know what the median is here. Is there a correlation between lower prices and higher revenue churn? I mean, this data here is inconclusive, right? It probably has a lot to do with the product itself. And this is what Jake is saying here. It's relative within the product itself. Exactly. A lot of it depends. It depends on a lot of factors, doesn't it? Also, by the way, some of these, like Buffer, which is doing $1.6 million in MRR, has a low average revenue per user and a low LTV, $413. But that's a pretty good business still. 1.6 million in MRR. Maybe you're okay with having a lower price and higher churn and lower LTV. Maybe that's okay for you. Generally, the higher your average revenue per user, the higher your lifetime value. But again, if we can compare these numbers like MRR to ConvertKit or Buffer, both have lower average revenue per user, lower LTV, but much higher MRR. It's inconclusive, right? Jack Ellis is saying the lower price point allows for a lower barrier of entry, less thought happens before buying, higher churn. You're making some assumptions in that. Is that necessarily true? Does a lower price mean less thinking that happens before buying? Maybe. Does that necessarily equate to higher churn? It doesn't look like the data shows that. So I understand your example. Do I really need this? Oh, it's only $5. Let's play around versus $50 a month. I don't know if that's true. It really depends on the product. I don't know if low-paying customers always churn at a higher rate. I don't think that's true. And we can also go to Open Benchmarks, which is another kind of cool service that Barometrics offers. We can go through metrics grouped by average revenue per user, under $10, okay? Revenue churn, 6.3%. Let's go up. $10 to $25. Revenue churn, 9.1%. Okay, so going from $10, under $10, up to $10 to $25, we actually churn increases in these cohorts, right? Let's go up again. $25 to $50, 8.5% revenue churn, as compared to 6.3%. $50, 8.3% churn. $100, 7.8% churn. And how come I can't click on $250? There we go. $250, 9.1% churn. So in 800 startups are using Barometrics, so they're pulling this data from a big cohort. And in these cohorts, the $250 tiers have the highest churn, I think. 9.1, 8.3, 8.5. Oh, 9.1. The $250 and up has the same percentage of churn, revenue churn, as 10 to 25. The lowest churn is actually in the under $10 segment. Now, $103 lifetime value. Maybe that's not the kind of customer you want. You go up to this tier, $199 lifetime value. But you get more churn, right? $440 lifetime value. 926, 2,240. How come this was sorry? 7,757. So, I mean, this is, man, you get a lifetime value of $7,571. It's pretty good, right? Maybe you'll take that higher churn for those kind of numbers. It's also interesting to look at median MRR. For these folks, median MRR is almost 63,000. Let's go down about 30,000. Go down again, 26,000. Not too different, hey? All right, let's go down again. Median MRR for these companies is 14,000. Median MRR for $10 to $25 is higher than $25 to $50. It's interesting. And then median MRR for these companies, again, around 15,000. Guess it really depends on what kind of company you want to start, doesn't it? But this is why I think it's important that we test some of these assumptions. And again, in the lower quartile here, you have these folks making $6,000, and upper quartile, you have these folks making $41,000. Over here, we've got $6,000 and $64,000. Whoa, look at this. Upper quartile here, only $39,000. So they might not have as much data for some of these segments, right? $50 to $100, upper quartile, again, $70,000, $100,000, $127,000, or $128,000, I should say. All of these numbers are really interesting. Yeah, I think it's worth investigating some of our assumptions. Should you always charge more? Maybe not. Should every product start at $5? Of course not. That would be ridiculous. Do low-paying customers always churn at a higher rate? Actually, I don't know if the data shows that at all. At least the data I can find. And I wonder if this is a truism or a trope that we need to eliminate from our vocabulary. Because maybe it's true. I mean, for me, back in 2010 with this company, but in terms of the metrics that Barometrics has, revenue churn is actually lowest for products that are under $10. Again, if you look at this spreadsheet and you look at revenue churn by average revenue per user, lower average revenue does not always mean higher churn. The whole point is that so much of this is dependent on the market you're in, on the product you've built, on the goals you have for your company, on the type of customers you want to serve, on the type of work you want to do, all of that stuff. How big of a team you want. There's so much dependent on this. One thing, another truism that I hear quite a bit is that price is the biggest lever you have. I don't know if this is true either. I'm almost wondering if what's more true is that the market you choose is your biggest lever. Price is a lever, but I hear this one all the time. Price is your biggest lever. I don't know if that's true. If we're going to generalize anything, I would say the market you choose matters a lot, maybe more than anything else. If you're targeting enterprise customers, that's going to determine your pricing. That's going to determine the product you build. That's going to determine how big of a team you have to build, all that stuff. Prices are relative to segments, not markets. Okay, so semantics here. Yes, I guess in that sense, I'm talking about market segments, not total markets. So the market segment you choose matters more than anything else. If we are going to make generalizations, your price should reflect the value you give, the segment you're in. I guess I got to change that, right? The market segment and the stage of your startup. Charge more can be good advice, but depending on the context, so can charge less. Tomorrow at 10:15 a.m., I am doing a live stream with Ben Orenstein and Jordan Gall, and we are going to probably debate a lot of this stuff. We were debating it on Twitter, and we decided we were going to take it to live video. So if If you want to hear more of this, check that out. 10:15 a.m. Pacific. You can sign up for to get notified by going to youtube.com/JustinJackson/live.